I'm good, all right. Many of us know, let me get right to it, many of us know that when the North defeated the South, slavery would eventually come to an end. Talking about the Civil War, 1863, 1865. The North defeated the South, which would eventually lead to the very end of slavery. We owe much to the North. Thank God. But what many don't know, is that slavery was legal in the North. Isn't that right? And I'm not talking about wasn't illegal in the North for just like a day or two. From 1624 to 1827, slavery was working in the North. So now what brought that to an end? Well, we owe it to a black woman. We owe it to a sister. Her slave name is Mom Bet. Just Mom and Bet, B-E-T-T. But her free name is Elizabeth Freeman. Now, what she did in the state of Massachusetts was she sued for her freedom. The Constitution said that she was a person, she was a human being, she was an American, and that she was free. And this sister that was a slave at the time broke away, sued for her freedom, and won. Now we're talking about the 1700s. So yeah, we're grateful that the North did what the North did, bringing it to an end in the South, but it was a sister in the North that brought it to an end in the North. Let me mention one more thing. If I go to my slide, one more thing. How many of us have heard of Phyllis Wheatley? Yeah, if you don't know, yeah. Phyllis Wheatley is another slave. And her slave masters allowed her to learn how to read and write. And she loved to read. And she loved to write. She was the first black woman to publish in the United States of America. Now, she was also one of the first to record her own poetry. She wrote poetry as well. And what I want to do is just honor her with this brief statement right here. She met General George Washington. Yeah, she wrote a poem about him. See, like Elizabeth Freeman, who loved her country, who believed in the Constitution of her state, Massachusetts. Phyllis Wheatley loved America. Now, Phyllis Wheatley was born a slave too. And so there's no question about the evils of slavery in their mind, but she loved the United States of America and what it stood for. And so she wrote a poem about George Washington. Oh my goodness, General Washington. Let me read this real. I'm just going to read an excerpt from it. It reads this way. Proceed, great chief. Proceed, move forward. With virtue on thy side. Thy every action, let the goddess guide a crown, a mansion, and a throne that shine with gold unfading. General Washington, that be thine. Now, when she wrote that, nobody really wanted to hear that. But let me tell you what, General Washington heard that she wrote a poem about him, and General Washington invited Phyllis Wheatley to come and read it to him. It was a great honor, and that's how come we know of this great poem today. These two women, these two black women in the early 1700s are largely responsible for the North coming to the understanding that slavery was wrong. Let's talk a little bit more about the 1700s. We got Oliver Cromwell, another American Revolutionary soldier, a heroic soldier. We've got over here Peter Salem, 1775, and right here in the middle we have Whipple, Prince Whipple. Prince Whipple is this black figure here at the front of the boat where you can see the circle here. He's facing toward the water, but he served with General George Washington as they were crossing the Delaware that great and heroic night in 1776. Black Americans have been involved with the history of the United States from the very beginning. Take a look at Reverend Absalom Jones. Look at some of these preachers. They got any preachers in the house? Got any preachers in the house? Well, let's take a look at some of these preachers here. We got Reverend Absalom Jones, the first black bishop, also an abolitionist. He found no problem being a black pastor and being an abolitionist all at the same time. Can I get a witness? Lord have mercy. How about Richard Allen founded AME Church? We're talking about 1794. And what about Henry Garnett, the first black preacher to preach in the U.S. House of Representatives? Oh my goodness. Where is all this history? We're talking about this sermon was preached in 1865. Guess what happened in 1865? Came to an end. A lot of things changed, didn't it? And I like to think that the North learned its lesson from this sister named Elizabeth Freeman, who fought for her slavery. Let's go to the next one. Real quick, I just got to run through these. Booker T. Washington, oh my goodness, founder of Tuskegee University. Frederick Douglass, abolitionist, advisor to the president, Abraham Lincoln. We got Sojourner Truth, abolitionist and a woman's right advocate. How many of us remember this? She said, "Ain't I a woman?" As she was doing everything a man could do. Oh, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Strong black woman. How about Harriet Tubman, which is my personal favorite? My goodness, when I think about the Underground Railroad, so many lessons we can learn from that. Today, we owe much to the richness of black history in America. Let me run, I gotta keep on running. How about this? How many recognize this photograph here? Oh, some? Well, let me tell you, I'm about to introduce something to you. Let's play this.
This 1872 print by Courier and Ives shows the first 7 black Americans elected to the United States Congress. All 7 were Republicans. From the left side of the picture, we have Hiram Revels of Mississippi. As an ordained minister, Hiram served as a missionary and pastor, recruited 3 black regiments in the Union Army, and was a chaplain during the Civil War. Revels became America's first black United States senator. Next is Benjamin Turner of Alabama. Turner was a slave during the Civil War, but within 5 years after the Civil War, Turner became a wealthy and prosperous businessman. Next is Robert DeLarge of South Carolina. DeLarge was born a slave, but within 3 years after the Civil War, DeLarge was serving in the State House. He also chaired the Republican Party's Platform Committee and became a statewide elected official. Next is Josiah Walls of Florida. Walls was a slave during the Civil War and was forced to fight for the Confederate Army. However, after he was captured by Union troops, he immediately enlisted as a Union soldier and even became an officer. After his election to the United States Congress, his credentials were challenged by the Democrats, and he was twice sent home. Walls was re-elected after the first challenge, but during the second challenge, the Democrats gained control of Florida, and Walls was prevented from returning. Next is Jefferson Long of Georgia. Born as a slave, Long was self-educated and built a thriving business. However, when elected to the United States Congress as a Republican, the Democrats boycotted his business, causing him great financial losses. Long was the first Black American to deliver a congressional speech in the House of the United States Congress. Next is Joseph Rainey of South Carolina. Born a slave, Rainey served briefly as Speaker of the United States House and was in Congress longer than any other Black American from that era. Seventh is Robert Elliott, also of South Carolina. Elliott was well educated, reading in Spanish, French, and Latin. In Congress, Elliott led to the passage of civil rights bills over the violent opposition of congressional Democrats, and he later became Speaker of the House in the state legislature. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the first Black senator and representatives of the United States of America.
Isn't that something? That can't be surprising that in the beginning, every Black man and woman in this country was a Republican. Yeah, amen. You ought to clap over that there. I mean, that's just a fact. That's just history. That's just what happened. Let me move on from here. Let's talk about a few honorable mentions, some men that I just can't stop talking about. How about this here, Representative Richard King? Listen to this. The black blood of the South comes because the Negroes are what? If they would only cease to be Republicans and vote the straight out what? There would be no trouble. Then the bad blood would sink entirely out of sight. Oh my goodness. I think he'd be arrested today, wouldn't he? Well, how about this one? Place all citizens upon one broad platform, and if the Negro is not qualified to hold his own role in this contest of life, then let him go down. Oh my goodness. All we ask of this country is to put no barriers between us, to lay no stumbling blocks in our way, and to give us freedom to accomplish our own destiny. To do this, sir, we shall ask nothing more. Richard King, member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Southern South Carolina at large. Oh my goodness. Let me move on to the next one. I got to move on. How about John Rock, the first Black American admitted to the United States Supreme Court bar, was both licensed doctor and a dentist. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. My time is running. Let me move on quickly. Oh, did I get it closer, Larry? Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. Bruce became the second Black man to serve full-time in the Senate. Now, Hiram Revels was the first. We saw that originally, but Hiram didn't finish out his term, but Bruce did. He was the first one to do that. Lynch, first Black American to preside over the National Political Convention. He literally presided over the entire convention. He grew up a slave, but became Speaker of the House. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing that we don't hear about these men, do we? We don't hear about these women, do we? This is U.S. history. My goodness. Quote, regarding the passage of the 1875 Civil Rights Bill, you're talking about Republicans, have stood by the colored people of this country when it was more unpopular to do so than it is to pass this bill. The bill was passed, but not a single one of the 114 Democrats in Congress voted for it. I can almost do a mic drop right here, right now. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Let's do a little quick analysis here. The Republican Party and the role of the Black American when passing the 13th Amendment, which after the Civil War, which has really ended it here in America, in the North and the South. Blacks were registering to vote and forming their own political parties across the South. Historically, the Republicans were the first Black party. 23 Black Americans elected to the U.S. Congress, all Republican. 13, all of them have been slaves. They were all self-educated. 3 of them were preachers. Lord have mercy. 7, got any attorneys in the house? Yeah, we have 7 of them were attorneys. 5 were school teachers. 4 were university presidents. And 13 were all, of course, state legislature. Oh my goodness, why isn't this taught in our public schools today? Thank you, babe. I have to go on to another subject. I got to quickly move on. I got to talk about the Ku Klux Klan. Do I need to, we know who these guys are? I mean, the fact of history is that the Klan played a prominent role in the Democratic Party. And let's say this as well. The Klan lynched both white and black folks. If you were a white Republican, guess what? You could be lynched too. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You can read that there. Let me move on. This here represents a volume from Congress from 1872. This is rare literature. And if you want to find it, it's on my website down here. You can go right to it. But this is a rare report from the U.S. Congress. It took me a long time to find this report here. But the report proves that the KKK had a working relationship with the Democratic Party. A working relationship. Let me move on here. How about the card? Have you seen the card before? You could card carrying Klan member. Well, here's one of the cards. Very, very rare, very, very difficult to find. But the card identifies 63 radical Republicans. You had to get rid of them. 50 blacks, 13 whites in the Carolina legislature. They all received, how should I put it, night visits from the Ku Klux Klan. Let me tell you why this is so important to me. Well, I found out about this, that my great-grandfather was lynched by the Klan. I won't tell you what they did to his wife, my great-grandmother, because I'm in polite company. But there were 14 children in the house. They set the house on fire with the 14 children in it, surrounded the house on their horses, in their sheets, with their hoods, set the house ablaze with fire, and only 7 of my family survived it. The older literally burnt alive to save the younger. And my grandmother was one of the 7 that got saved. When they told me this story in my family, I had to learn more about the Ku Klux Klan. Let's get down here to number 4. In 1915, the Klan made The Birth of a Nation. It's a movie. Their first movie. They were already in the video. But they did it in the White House. Lord have mercy. The NAACP fought to ban the movie, supported by Democrat President Woodrow Wilson. The first movie ever shown in the White House. Oh my goodness, we're still not talking about that today, are we? They move on here. Look at some of remember now, they have this working relationship with the Klan. Look at this. Poll tax, Democrats. Literacy test, Democrat. How about the grandfather clause, passed by a Democratic legislator? Let's put it this way. Blacks could only vote if their grandfather voted before the 15th Amendment. Is the message clear? It's clear to me. It's clear to me. Black codes, gerrymandering, white-only primaries, physical and violent intimidation. Of course, that working relationship with the Klan worked out real well for the Democratic Party. State constitution or civil rights clauses. My goodness, and voter fraud. My time is running. I've got to go. Frederick Douglass put it this way back in his day. For the colored voters, the Republican Party is the ship. All else is the sea. That's how he felt about it at the time. Let me move on. There's a shift in perception. Things change. How many of us know when black folks started to vote Democrat? Any guesses? 1930, I heard 1930. Anybody, anything else? John Kennedy, what else? Huh? The New Deal. One more. Lyndon Johnson, world poverty. Guess what? Everybody's wrong. This is when it started. The Compromise of 1877. Let me touch on this for a minute. Rutherford B. Hayes was running for president against Samuel Tilden. But guess what? At that time, the Electoral College couldn't settle who won the election. Tilden actually had more electoral votes than Rutherford Hayes, a Republican. So guess what they did? 1877. They went to a black man's hotel named James Wormley in Washington, D.C. And they struck a deal. The Republican Party valued power over the people. And they sold out black America in 1877. This was the deal. This was just one part of the deal. But it was the deal that broke it. The part that broke it. In order for Tilden to give all the electoral votes to Rutherford B. Hayes, the only election like that in the history of this country, guess what the Republican Party had agreed to? They had to agree to remove all the troops from the South. You wonder why we had those first 7 blacks representatives in the U.S. House, in the Congress? It was because that was during Reconstruction. You know, and the reason why black folk could vote in the South was because they had the troops stand there by the voting booth saying, hey, wait a minute, no, you can't do that. He or she can come on in here and vote. But when it came right down to the power, who would stand in the White House? The Republican Party said, okay, if you'll let us be president, we'll remove the troops from the South. I wonder why that was sort of a requirement of the deal. The Democrats literally gave up the White House so they could have the troops removed from the South. And when they did that, we got this over here. For the first time ever, 1877, black folk are starting to vote for the Democratic Party. And that lasted all the way up until the 60s. Alvita's right. Let me tell you, between that time, 1877, all the way up until the 1960s, black folk would sometimes vote a little Democrat, sometimes vote Republican. But you know what the deciding issue for our vote was? We would vote Democrat or Republican based on who had the best anti-lynching policy. And whoever had that, it was working. Now, a lot of things happened in the 1960s, one of which had a whole lot to do with her uncle, who was in jail, and it was, can I say it? It was the Democrats, Kennedy, that helped get Martin Luther King Jr. out of jail. And when Daddy King said, thank you for letting get my boy out of jail, almost every black American in the country said, hey, wait a minute, where's the D level? Boom. Started voting different. It's been that way almost ever since. Lord have mercy. But now historically, the Democrats are the party of the claim. That's true. I forgot to mention that. Daddy King was a Republican. Lord have mercy. I got to move on. My time is running. Civil rights legislation of the 60s, the Republicans passed the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It was the Republicans that did that. From 1875 to 1968, the Voting Rights Act was opposed by the majority of the Democrats. They didn't want black folk to vote. Lord have mercy. Can somebody answer this question for me? When did the Democratic Party stop being racist? Huh? When did they stop? I mean, tell me how you stop. Look at 91% of Republicans in Congress voted. 91% of the Republicans voted. Oh, Lord, to bring in the poll tax. I love this picture here on the church. Ain't no poll tax in heaven, y'all. Let me go on the next one. This is my last slide. My last slide. Well, where do we go from here? This is sort of a final thought. So a final thought. Let me put this down. There's a whole lot of history I just ran through. There's a whole lot more to it. From Elizabeth Freeman, my goodness, fighting for her freedom in the North. till we come all the way up to the day. What can I leave you in terms of a final thought? Knowing our history and understanding how we got here is critical. You got to know your history, and you got to understand how you got here. It is what it is. It's just history. And firmly holding on to our biblical values gives us the advantage when it comes time for us to look to the future. You got to know. Lord have mercy. You got to know your history. You got to know where you came from. You know how you got here. And once you know that, you have the advantage when it comes to looking to the future. God bless you.